Hey, what's up guys, Chris Connor here and welcome to the most awaited Creatrix Visuals tutorial from the Star Wars VFX Academy series, the ultimate lightsaber. Let's take a look at the clip. Awesome. Now, I had a bit of a hard time deciding how to present my VFX technique to one of the most famous visual effects in a way that does not recycle info that you guys have already seen from the countless tutorials out there, but at the same time stays true to my compositing approach and effects. With that said, fire up After Effects and let's get started. So starting off, I'm gonna take you guys through my After Effects project file, which if you guys want access to my project files, make sure to check the link in the description, because by becoming a patron and supporting the channel, you'll get access to awesome rewards. So here's what I have. I have the manual saber, and it has that title because the entire saber is being done by hand. Basically frame by frame, rotoscoping the blade and putting all the lightsaber effects. So that is the first one, which I'm going to show you guys. And here I have the manual masking, which I'm going to show you how I achieve a very detailed and on the blade effect. Because you know that jiggle effect that happens if you try to do it by hand. I think with my technique, guys, you're going to make it look pretty awesome. And then we have the second case. And believe it or not, this is done by using a null object and tracking the blade on the lightsaber and then applying a mask that basically follows that null in order to achieve that very smooth blade on the saber that is not jiggly and follows the blade perfectly. So there is a case that you can basically track the hilt and the tip and apply a mask, a white solid basically, and very fast and very easy create a saber, but it needs to be relatively easy to track and the blade does not move very rapidly. Whereas in the first case, we need to do it by hand if we want the perfect saber. So let's start easy, and I'm just going to share with you guys my settings for my project just to make sure that you're working on the same depth, because we're going to work with glow effects. It really matters about what settings you use and how much is the dynamic range of your composition in order to create that glow effect that has a lot of, how to put this, essentially it has a lot of range in terms of its brightest and darkest moment. So this is my settings, and I have a tutorial on why I use those if you want to check it out. So press OK and I'm ready to get started. So let's actually start with the easy version, which is the null saber. So let's see, this is my composition. Right, this is my raw footage, which of course is graded to help the PC while it's recording, but this is my base case that I'm gonna use in order to create a saber. So as you can see, I have my saber hilt, which I custom made all my saber hilts, and I'm gonna show it to another tutorial. And basically I have my blade, right? So usually what you're gonna do is you're gonna create a new white solid, and you're gonna make a mask and then try to hand mask it essentially, using the mask path in order to make it follow the blade. But that does not look good if the blade stays relatively still. So let's see how I achieve this. So I'm gonna go to this composition, and as you can see, I have a null object, and this null object, if I double press P or once in this case, it has all the data of where that hilt is moving in space, right? And it's very easy to do. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna right click and track motion. Awesome. And here I'm gonna open my tracker and I'm gonna select point and rotation. So this will give us 2 points to work on. So I'm gonna put the first one on my hilt and the second one to either one of those cool spots or at the tip of my saber. And then I'm gonna simply hit track forward, and it's gonna track the entire thing across the length, the life of my footage essentially, right? So let me close this for now. So this is what I did with my null object. So it has that data now. So what I did is I created a white solid, as you can see. Let me light it up. No, that's not funny. So if I zoom in here, let me close it for now, you can see that I have a mask, right? So I created a new solid by hitting Control and Y, just to make things on. I'm gonna create a white one and press OK. So this is my white solid. If I press M, I'm gonna hit Control C to copy that mask and put it in my new white solid. So as you can see, it's essentially a white solid with a mask on top to cover the entire blade of the saber. So with that done, let me remove this. Okay. So once I have my mask, and by the way guys, I always use 3 points at the hilt and 3 points at the end too. I do this for very specific reasons that you're gonna see in the other case where we had to hand draw the entire thing. So now that I have mask and I have my solid and it's perfect on top of the saber blade, I'm gonna parent this to the null object. And once I've done that and I go through, you can see that the blade, our white solid essentially, follows the blade perfectly, and we do not have to rotoscope by hand, which is a great thing, especially for lightsaber effects, because it takes a long time. So with that done, I'm ready to create the actual saber effect. So I'm gonna go back to my composition and I'm gonna open my saber thing. And at first it might look tricky, but it's very easy guys. So as you can see, if I solo this, this is our solid, right? And I'm gonna put this one on full so we can really see it. So I have my white solid that I created before, and I pre-compose it together with a null object in a different composition. So I'm gonna, and what I did is, let me delete the Gaussian blur. I go to Effects, Blur and Sharpen, and Gaussian blur, which is right there. And for the first one, I'm just gonna put in 1 just to give it that feathering look. And then I duplicated that solid once to create a second one, and for the second one, I put the Gaussian blur on 10, because you can see it creates that cool white effect. And everything is parented to the null since it's basically copy pasted. And then I created a lot more, as you can see, and I play with the Gaussian blur effect, and I'm just putting up like 50, 250 and 500 in order to create that awesome glow effect as if the blade emits light essentially. And then here's what, let me remove and solve them, and here's what I do then. I leave the first two alone essentially because I need them to be white. So I have a white blade with a white feathering using Gaussian blur, but then for the entire rest white solids, I put an adjustment layer and I simply apply the color vibrance effect from Video Copilot, which is free. And guys, if you don't have it, make sure to go get it. It's free and it's an amazing plugin for basically colorizing effects. And as you can see here, it does a great job with a range of color. And that's it. Now, once I go back, you can see when I put it on top, it's basically there. But we do not just stop there. I apply a hue and saturation effect when I can easily control the color of the blade as well as its saturation. So that really depends on your footage and how bright it is outside, or like what you want the blade to look like. So for this one, I just left it there. And here comes an awesome trick guys. I apply an exposure effect and then I put an expression control to make it go basically wiggle, but not in terms of anything else, but just the exposure. So what this is gonna do, let me show you. Let's open the effects and exposure master. Awesome. So as you can see, I went with exposure and I keyframed the effect of exposure, so it very quickly goes up and down. It's like flickering. Basically the saber itself, it's flickering. And my exposure settings in the wiggle effect is wiggle parenthesis 50, 0.10, and that depends on the saber and how close it is to the camera or how far away it is, but basically this is the expression that you're going to use in order to make the saber flicker throughout its life. And what that's going to do, it's going to basically tell the audience that, hey, this is not just a drawing, and it's essentially light that flickers as it turns, moves, or stays relatively still, as it does in this occasion. See? So actually, let's preview this to see what it does. Okay, as you can see, with that small flicker, we create a saber that is not just still and looks kind of empty. And so I think this effect adds a lot of value to the visual of the saber. So I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Obviously it wasn't that crazy, but because we used the null tracking data, we are applying a saber effect that looks perfect because it tracks the actual blade, and we do not hand rotoscope it, and we have that weird jiggly effect that you usually look, and it looks pretty professional. And also by applying the exposure effect, we make it look pretty cool because it basically has a dynamic feel to it instead of just a white solid, right? Awesome. Another trick, you can use curves adjustment to control the light that the saber emits. Keep that in mind because I use it all the time. And essentially, guys, depending on how bright or how low, how dark the scene is, the saber is going to look different. So you will either need to duplicate a lot of these things, as you can see I have here. So if the scene was brighter, I will have to duplicate my effect, because the saber tends to look cooler when it's dark, but that does not mean that you can't make it look awesome in bright scenes as well. So with that said, I'm gonna move on to the harder part, which is the manual saber. So once more, I have my footage here, which is me trying to be cool. I think I succeed, by the way, but you guys tell me. And I have the saber, and there we go, the ignition, and then a lot of movements, guys. So because the saber moves so fast through space, there's absolutely no way to track it using a null object or anything else. So you will have to hand rotoscope the thing if you want to have the perfect saber. I guess it's the price of awesomeness. By the way, because I received a lot of comments, many of you guys thought I used the video copilot plugin called Saber in order to create the blade, and if I have to be real, it's a very good effect if you want to be fast and you have to create something really quickly, but it is not, I do not advise it if you want to achieve a cinema quality, awesome looking saber. So if you want to do that, you can try using the video copilot plugin, but personally, it is my advice that it's not the best for super awesome looking sabers. So let me go through, as you can see, pretty cool. And the saber moves so fast that you will have to hand draw it. So let's see how we're gonna do that. So I'm just gonna go there to random. Actually, let's start from the beginning, right there. So I'm gonna open my manual masking comp, and as you can see, I have 3 white solids, and basically every time the scene changes, I create a new saber comp. See, and that's how we're gonna do. I'm just gonna stay there. So I'm gonna open it, and once more, as you can see, it's simply a white solid with a mask, but the difference is how we're gonna rotoscope that mask. So I'm gonna close it for now, and I'm gonna hit M, and I'm gonna zoom in here. So once more, as you guys see from before, I use 3 points on the blade and 3 points at the tip of the blade for animation. And I'm gonna zoom in here. So as the blade moves on, see, and I'm start twisting it, you can see that I have gone frame by frame, because this, again, the blade moves so fast that there's no other way. So I go by pressing page down, I'll go frame by frame, and as you can see, the blade perfectly the mask perfectly follows the blade because I do it hand by hand. Now, what happens in the case that the blade will go behind the actor, right? Which is done in this case. So when this happens, guys, let me actually open the thing so you can see page up to go backwards and so when that happens, I create a new mask to remove the actor from that effect. So if you go to mask number 2, you can see it says subtract, and then I animate that mask for as long the blade is behind the actor in order to give that sense that the blade moves behind. It's a very lengthy progress, but straightforward at the same time. So as we go on, you can see now I have 2 masks, one for the tip, one for the hilt base, and I just go through and I'm trying to do the best to make the saber look accurate in terms of its moves. So if I actually close the mask, you can see how it looks. And again, it's just the white solid, and we're just trying to animate it through time to make it look realistic. It really takes a long time, but that's what it takes to create a perfect saber. And it goes through, and it is the same thing again as you can see. But let me show you guys what happens when the saber is stopped. So let me open this one. So it moves pretty fast now too. Let me go to the second one, which is right there. There we go. So the purpose of using 3 points at both the tip and the hilt of the blade is because you can create the actual shape of the blade once the blade does not move as fast, because as you can see here, the blade moves so fast that you can't really see the round tip of the saber, and you just see a very fast blurred version of the solid like this, which is okay. But once it stops, you need to actually see the saber, and that's Control Z, awesome. And that's why I use 3 points. And also, go here to the beginning, those 3 points are actually very useful for, if I zoom in here, see, you can, because it's the blouse and the shirt or whatever it is that you're gonna have on the foreground, having 3 points helps a lot to twist the mask path around the shape that you want. So once I've done that, you can see I just have sabers now, and I just have all the solids. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pre-compose each solid, and I'm gonna apply the same effects that were applied in the first case, which was this one. So I'm gonna do that. So as you can see, let me zoom in here. I have the first lightsaber, which took me probably 6 hours to animate the mask. But I'm happy because now I can actually see it realized through visuals. So I have S1 for the first saber, and I'm gonna double click to open it. So as you can see, the first solid is just Gaussian blur and 1 for a very small feather value. Let me put that back. There we go. The second one is set on 10, and it gives just that very small white glow, because the inner energy core of the saber is always white, and as it moves to the edge, it has color. So the first 2 are exactly the same. Then I put an adjustment layer with my VC color vibrance set at basic settings, and then we move on to the next. And now this one, because I wanted the color to be blue, I had to create more solids and play with the Gaussian blur value and either duplicate some in order to achieve the perfect glow effect that I wanted. And keep that in mind, guys, you will always have to experiment with the amount of and copies of solids and the amount of Gaussian blur in order to create that cool glow effect. In my point, if the scene is lighter, you will need more copies in order to achieve that awesome look. So with that done, and of course always put on screen mode, I go back to the manual saber, and as you can see, once more I have the hue and saturation control to control the saber color. See, turn it off and turn it on. So I put to 120 for a cool blue effect, and also I pumped up the saturation to 25 to give it a more bluish tone, and then I put the exact same exposure effect, but for this one, let's open it up. The wiggle is 20,5 because it depends how close or how fast or what's happening with the entire scene and how the saber moves through space and how much flickering you want your saber to have to be evident to the audience that this is a very awesome light beam effect. And basically that animates by itself, which is pretty cool. And then I just have a curves adjustment to play with the blue value as a last trade. And that's it, guys. As you can see, it's very straightforward. It's basically create white solid, animate the mask, and apply the effects that I showed you guys to make the saber look more dynamic and have an awesome glow effect. Now, and as we move through, you guys can see. And actually, let me zoom out and preview this one. Let's see it. And open your eyes. And so as you can see, obviously, let's cycle through this. Zoom. Okay, so guys, as you can see, it looks pretty awesome visual wise, but the last part to make it truly come to life would be SFX, which stands for sound effects. Now, if you guys want, hit that like button, because if it hits, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 likes, I'm gonna put a free ultimate lightsaber sound effect, which I used in this one, for you guys for free. So hit the like button, show me guys that you want this, and don't worry, I got your back. So, and essentially that's it. I know this was a different take on the tutorial, but because of the nature of the effect, which is basically a very tedious project of rotoscoping and moving through the mask in order to make sure that the saber stays true to the footage and follows the blade perfectly, I thought it would be best to show you guys a reverse order of how I would go from a finished product back to the bare bones masks and things and effects in order to achieve that lightsaber effect. And remember, if the saber moves slowly, chances are that you can track the hilt base and the tip and apply a null object, and then the mask will follow that null object perfectly, so you will not have to rotoscope. So, manual saber and null saber. Okay guys, that's a wrap. Make sure to watch the other tutorials on the channel and stay tuned for what's coming up next. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. See you guys on the next one.